Welcome to episode number 5 of the College Wrestling Review. I will be your host, as always, Eric Olenowski. And before we start the show, I just want to do a little something that I said I was going to do, and that's thank everybody. Give you a quick shout out if you sent either a suggestion for the show or if you sent any type of feedback on what you thought we could do better, because I do listen and I'm trying to make it better. So Josh Colello, at Manbear, Ryan Ritter, Kelly Sidney, Robert Turner, Jenna Ledbetter, Connor Keifling, Reese Maitland, Your Mullet is Sick, Aaron Levin, Malinotes, and Julie Ray. Thank you guys for getting back to me, letting me know what you think I could do better. I'm open to any suggestion. So with that said, let's get to the topic of discussion for episode number 5 of the College Wrestling Review on the AssociatedWrestlingPress.com, and that's going to be Iowa versus Iowa State. Iowa State's coming into Carver Hawkeye Arena, and I like to start my day off on a good note. So what I did this morning was I woke up and I turned on the NCAA Finals between Mark Perry and Johnny Hendricks. A little background information on this match. Johnny Hendricks, 2-time returning national champion. Mark Perry has never beaten him. That's all you need to know. What do you think happens? Mark Perry ends up going out there and defying the odds. Ends up beating Johnny Hendricks, winning the national title. Now, after I did that, I went and I started to look at some forums. I started to look at some blogs. I started to look at a couple articles. And what comes up is, it kind of disturbs me. Headlines. And don't get me wrong, if you're going to make a point about this, that's okay. If you're going to reference this, that's okay. I understand that. You can do that. But articles being written, whole articles about Iowa State coming in, haven't won in the past 10 dual meets. Great point. Leave it at that. That's it. But no, whole articles, that's unacceptable. As a wrestling writer, what you need to do is you need to talk about relevant topics for today in wrestling. That's irrelevant. Do you think Kevin Jackson, for 1 second, is going to go into that locker room at Carver Hawkeye and tell his kids, what happened the past 10 years really matters? So we're going to go out there and we'll have fun. We're not going to win because 10 times before us, we've lost. No, did you think Mark Perry thought that? Absolutely not. So your job as a wrestling writer is to make the most relevant topics for today known. Not bring up what happened 10 years ago. You make a point out of it. I understand that. But don't continue to do this because you're not doing the sport any good. What we're here for is relevant topics. You need to write articles this way. Think about one person is going to read that article that has never watched the sport of wrestling, that has never read about the sport of wrestling, that has never wrestled. You want to grab their attention. You want to make sure it's known that wrestling is the greatest sport known to man. If I read your article and I say, why are they talking about 10 years ago? What does that matter? It means nothing. It means zero. So continue to do that. And then you can say, we're trying to grow the sport. You're not trying to grow the sport. What you're doing is you're living in the sport's past, and we don't need to do that. If we're going to get wrestling to the next level where it needs to be, we need to continue to make what's relevant. And I'm tired of seeing articles about what happened back then. It doesn't matter. It means zero. Do you think Mark Perry worried about what Johnny Hendricks, when they wrestled previously? Absolutely not. Do you think that any of these wrestlers, for instance, if they're wrestling in the NCAA Finals, and they say, I lost to him the 5th match of the season, I'm done. I'm done. No, I'm not going to win. Absolutely not. So why do you continue to harp on the past? Move on. Better the sport today. I'm heated. That's that. Guys, and another thing that you always see in wrestling is it's all about money. That's another thing that I'm tired of. You didn't get into the sport of wrestling for money. You knew that there wasn't money. And I understand we need money. Do you think Jordan Burroughs just had a kid? Do you think he's thinking, I don't need to support my family. Wrestling's not going to do it. Absolutely not. And I understand their money has to be made, but don't make it such a big topic. That's all you hear now. Wrestling, we need to make it a money sport. Wrestling, we need this. We need more money in wrestling. No, the money will come. What you need to do is you need to teach these kids the ways of wrestling, the strive that you have to go through, the grind that you have to go through, the motivation that you gain from wrestling. We need to teach these kids. We don't need to continue to brainwash them into thinking we need more money in wrestling. You're only chasing them away. Football, so much money. Basketball, so much money. Wrestling, zero money. Gone. You just lost another one. What we need to do is we need to continue to teach them. We need to inspire them. We need to tell them that wrestling is the greatest sport. We need to give them lessons that we have all learned. Why we succeed is because of wrestling. If you're a wrestler and you're thinking, I didn't succeed from wrestling, you're wrong. You're not a true wrestler. That is the key. Right there. Wrestling is the key to why everyone in this sport has succeeded. You might not have achieved all your goals, but does that mean you didn't succeed? Absolutely not. Success is what you make it. Some of us have graduated college. We might not have achieved the goals that we wanted to on the wrestling map, but we graduated college. That's a great achievement. Why did we do that? Because of the sport of wrestling taught us to stick stuff out. Even though we didn't achieve our goals, we still continue to go. So I'm tired of seeing the monetary value. Not enough money in wrestling. I understand that, and that's going to come, but stop stressing it, please. Oh my gosh. Got me. I'm sweating over here, and I totally forgot about the topic of discussion, and that's Iowa State coming in to Iowa. And since I'm being negative, I got to find something bad about this duel. I guess. If you were to ask me what's one thing that you would change about the Iowa State versus Iowa duel, and I would change this. Put it this way, if you're a manager for a band, your band they're the biggest band in the world. They just came out with one of the best albums that they've ever put out. All right? Keep following me here. I'm going somewhere. You're not going to start out at Madison Square Garden. Why? Because you're inexperienced. Your band doesn't have the timing that they need, the experience that they need. They don't have a song list. They've never done it before. So you don't start out the beginning of the tour at the mecca of all sporting complexes, of all performance complexes. You don't do it. Now we move that to wrestling. Iowa State, very inexperienced early in the season. They go to the wrestling mecca of the world. If you're a wrestler, one place you want to wrestle is Carver Hawkeye Arena. I think if Iowa would have scheduled this 5-6 weeks from now, maybe we'll say the middle of January, would this be a different duel than it's going to be next week? Absolutely. You bet your bottom dollar it's going to be. Why? Because these kids are they're young. You do have veterans in this lineup, and that's understandable. They're still inexperienced too. Cutting the weight, it's a different year. They might have All-American last year, but if the cutting the weight is going to be different, it's going to be the most hostile environment in sports. I've wrestled there. It is you have grandmothers with canes who have to be escorted to their seats yelling profanity at you. Get that? You have grandmothers. You have babies. You have women. You have children. They might even bring their pets to yell at you. So I would have just liked to see maybe later on in the season this match happen because I think it would be a different duel. I'm not saying that, back to the original point, I'm not saying that they're going to go in there and lose, but I'm just saying it would have been more competitive. You would have seen a better duel because these kids would have had their weight under control. They would have had to know what to eat after weigh-ins to make them feel better throughout the year. They would have had all this experience. But the keys to this duel, we have two matchups that are returning All-Americans. Corey Clark and Earl Hall, they'll be wrestling at 133. They're both returning All-Americans, but they both moved up. So they were both at 125, All-American. So you'll see that. Nathan Burke and Kevon Gadsden, they'll wrestle at 197. Both returning All-Americans as well. A match to watch. I wouldn't say that it's between the two returning All-American, or four, returning All-Americans, two at each weight. I think it would be the 165, Nick Moore versus Mike Moreno. And I say that because Nick Moore has won the past two duels between Iowa and Iowa State, but Moreno has the only win when it counted, and that is at the NCAA tournament. And he's a returning All-American. So I would say 165 is the match to watch. It's going to be a good one. Iowa's number 2, Iowa State's number 12. I mean, two top 15 teams. It's going to be exciting. So you have 7 wrestlers out of the 20 wrestlers that are going to be wrestling, returning All-Americans. You have Corey Clark, Earl Hall, Mike Evans, Nathan Burke, Bobby Telford, Mike Moreno, and Kevon Gadsden. So that's exciting. How many times you have 7 out of 20 All-American? Not going to go too much in detail about this match. I think it's going to be a great one. I think the atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric. I want to apologize for getting a little emotional there, but I'm here to grow the sport. We all should be here to grow the sport. Every day when I wake up, the first thing on my mind is I just need one person. One person to watch a match that they've never watched. One person to read an article that grabs their attention. We need everybody. If every wrestler in this country gains one follower a day on our sport, we're going to get to where we need to go. Stop looking at the bigger picture. I don't say stop looking at the bigger picture. Excuse me. Let's take it day by day. Everyone wants to they want this sport to be so enormous right now, and it's going to take work. It's going to take trial and error. We need to figure out what we need to do better, and we need to do it slowly over time. With that being said, I'd just like to apologize again. That has been episode number 5 of the Associated Wrestling Press's College Wrestling Review. Your host, Eric Olenowski. Keep in mind, this is just the weekly preview that I do. I will also be putting out a review earlier next week on the duel. I'm excited for that. Keep in mind, Oklahoma State and Minnesota wrestle at Minnesota, so that ought to be a good one as well. Thank you for listening, and please, if you have any suggestions, any comments, any questions, please just shoot me an email you can send it to collegewrestlingreview@gmail.com, or my Twitter's always open, EasyE_Shownuff, SHONUFF. Thank you very much, and that's been it for episode number 5 of the Associated Wrestling Press's College Wrestling Review.